95 of AI agents never make it past the demo stage. 5% ship to production. That's the gap. It's not the technology, it's the feedback. This is agentic AI innovation. Less than the thought from Evals, shipping AI system under pressure. My guest today is Jyothi. She has been at companies like AWS, Netflix for over 13 years. She holds 12 patents. She has coached more than 1,500 product managers into AI roles through her program and Next Gen PM. I haven't been able to stop thinking about. She said that the best AI PMs know when not to use AI. I wanted to dig into what that means when system is agentic, when the whole point is for it to act on it on its own. Jyothi, welcome. Really glad you are here with.
Thank you, Lena. I have been looking forward to this. I'm super excited to come here and talk on your show. I know you and I overlapped a little bit when we were at Amazon, and I think all of us are watching the agentic AI space. So I'm really excited to come here and speak with you all.
Let's start there with the moment of outside 2026. Like this year, agentic AI finally arrives. Multi-agent system, autonomous workflows, agents that take actions without a human in the loop. But the data tells a different story. Most of these things aren't shipping. What are you actually seeing in the graph?
Yeah, there's actually a very interesting question. So, what I'm actually seeing right now is there's a lot of interest in agentic AI space, but if you see, most of them are demoware agents. Folks are prototyping, folks are demoing to their leadership, but actually to bring it into production is still a big major gap today, because bringing it into production needs you to think about hardening the agentic pipelines like our traditional pipelines, which haven't been thought about or have not, there are not many tools that allow you to make it easy for you to harden your agents before you take it into production. So you could see like the recent MIT survey as well spoke about how 95% of the agents today that are prototyped but are not in production, only 5% make it into production. And that's the gap today.
That feels important. What does it mean to ship a AI system to be more trustworthy and in production control? Why are those 5% systems going to production and not 95?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. And the thing is, what trust means in production is that your system behaves in a deterministic way. That is, when someone clicks on something, they expect right now in a workflow, like you click on this button, the next page opens, or you click on this workflow, you know what the next workflow is going to be. So it's defined in a deterministic way with boundaries. Now with agentic systems, your underlying technology is probabilistic. So you as a user who has created this agent and now are trying to publish this into production, you don't know how it behaves under what situation. Like recently there was this post about how someone figured that you could use McDonald's customer support agent to actually start giving you coding without you having to shell your own money or $20 on Claude, that you could just use McDonald's support bot. So you see how people could really tweak it in very different ways, and you don't know how your agent behaves. So trust here is having the confidence in how your agent behaves under stress, how your agent behaves under vulnerabilities, how your agent behaves when there is prompt injections that happen or in unforeseeable circumstances. How does your agent behave? Does it fail gracefully? Does it know what its boundaries are? It is basically trust comes down to like the confidence in knowing that you can sleep at night and your agent will do the work just like the way your enterprise intends it to perform.
That resonated a lot. I'm just curious, in this era, what does a product manager own? What are they accountable for when they are building these agentic AI systems, which are very fast paced in a tight timeline, going faster to production? Well, like the delivery date being yesterday and still trying to get it there.
Yeah. The PDLC, which is the product development life cycle, has changed completely. Previously, if the PMs used to own PRDs, we still own PRDs. We still own understanding the customer problem, identifying what is the problem and digging into what solution should we develop. I think the difference that has come up right now is that previously, if your life cycle was a lot more linear, where you're as a PM you would go into doing some customer research, you'd gather data, you'd write a PRD on what that should look like, what your MVP should be, then you'd get a bunch of stakeholders into a meeting to agree that this is the right problem to go prioritize. Then you get engineering who will take that requirements, then look into your MVP, go build an MVP, and then you take that back to a user to get user feedback. So you see, it was a very linear process before. Now, what has happened is that process has become like a lot more tighter and iterative, where you as a PM, you could prototype. So you prototype quickly, vet out your ideas, take it back to your customers, and see what your customers have feedback on, iterate back on that feedback. Pretty much you're on this loop of getting the product market fit first before you even hand it over to engineering. And at that point in time, all that you're engineering already know that there is product market fit. So it's no longer about what does MVP look like. You already have a prototype of that MVP. So it is about hardening that MVP, making sure that the right architectural principles are applied, the right code patterns are applied, the right traffic reloading or the monitoring, and like basically hardening the system is done. So you see that the we still own what we should go focus on, what feature we should build. Engineering still holds the how, but the two major gaps that PMs are filling for now is prototyping, so you get quick feedback, and the other is evals, which is how do you expect the system to behave? And for that, you create like a golden data set. And so PMs are now owning the eval layer as well.
I'm curious if you can walk us through actually how do you define a scope when you are evaluating when an agentic system is ship ready versus not?
Yeah, so I would say categorize it across different phases. So one is what is it actually built for, right? So that's the happy. Like if it's a customer support agent, then here are the 5 categories, and someone comes to identify, say, how do I reset my password? It should be able to go pull that information. So one is the happy path. So identify all your happy paths and have those as a few cases. Then comes edge cases. So this is where you have to spend a lot of time. The best thing that has worked for me is to go and look at past customer conversations or customer information. So if it's support agent, you already can go back and look and see what are customers usually asking about, what are those things that had to be escalated, things that had to be escalated to your manager, or things had to be escalated to like many other people beyond just the customer support associate. So I say go back to your data and see how is your data, what is your data saying, and from there you can glean out a few edge cases. So you can write the edge cases for that. Then comes when you do the experimentation with like few users, see how do they use the system, do a lot of beta testing to capture edge cases, and think about prompt injection, think about guardrails. Like you want to make sure that your agent doesn't go and talk about any random thing. People shouldn't use an agent to ask what's the weather today. Like, have all those guardrails in place. And then comes the real part of when you actually put it into production. You might have thought of 100 use cases, but there will always be that one use case you didn't think about that will come through. And the key is iteration. I think it's never launch and done. It is always iteration. So you have to look at in incorporating sufficient monitoring capabilities. So when you do find that edge case, how do you quickly like one click put it back to your evaluation data set? So now your data set is a living document or a living repository that continues to grow as you discover more things in production.
That's wonderful. I know you have been into Claude ecosystem intensively right now. You have created courses helping others learn about Claude. What are you seeing from the PMs who are actually trying to build with Claude? These prototypes, where do the pilot to production problems show up there too?
Yeah. And so, folks in my Claude intensive workshop, we are covering across the spectrum. So, you see, there is like models, what type of model to use for which use cases. Then you have what interfaces can I use, which is when should I use browser, when should I use desktop, when can I use mobile, when can I use terminal. So, that's the other piece. And then on top of that comes what are the various knowledge specific or company specific knowledge graph that I can control. That is memory, the context injection, and skills, projects. These are all things that are like company specific guidelines that I can frame and inject to make sure the work that I'm doing has context, and there is we are building off of what exists versus having to like recreate everything. Then comes the layer of how do you build things like the prototypes, which for which you can use Claude Code. You can use also for automations like Claude Cowork. How do you use skills and MCPs together, for example, so that your agent has access to multiple workflows and multiple tools in a way that it can extract information as the need arises. And you want to do all of this in a way that it doesn't consume the context memory completely. So like skills are a great way for that. So we're looking into how do we use skills to keep our context lean, but at the same time enough for the agent to go and execute the tasks. So that's the different layers the learning, and I think it maps really well to our PDLC life cycle as well.
That's wonderful. As somebody who is trying to catch up with Claude, I feel there is so much innovation happening. Like every week there are new features getting launched. Like today I was talking to a designer and the person said like we just got a new access 1 hour ago and I'm running out of tokens. I'm curious, what's your take? Like PMs who are trying to build this prototype or
Yeah.
trying to have conversation with Claude, how to optimize and how to use it at that best.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with injecting the right context so that you're not repeating a lot of things. So maybe leveraging projects, for example, where a lot of context is there and you don't have to repeat and inject a lot more context. It's also sometimes helpful to define some instructions, like for example, keep it under 200 words so that it doesn't go into like a full long form explanation. And also like keep it use bullets instead of say descriptive sentences. So it's good to like have some of those instructions narrowed down so that you could post it in the instructions panel as your own like project system prompt in a way that allows you to fine tune the experience a little bit more.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing those tips. I'll switch gears a bit and I'd like to talk to you about. You mentioned something which has stuck with me. A good PM knows when not to use AI as well. I feel that judgment even becomes harder in this era. How do you make the call when to use AI versus when not to use AI?
Yeah, so like I feel all of us are in this hype right now where our managers are asking what's our agent AI strategy. For even for our CEOs, like there is like a mandate coming through that hey, we should have an AI strategy in place, and so everyone is like just cobbling up to use AI, and I feel like that's the wrong way to approach it. Just I always use analogies to convey my point, and I tell this even in my class, like if all you need to do is go and buy groceries, it's okay to use a Toyota Camry to go buy groceries. You don't need a Ferrari if all you need to do is go buy groceries. So, in that same way, AI is a great tool, but you need to analyze. It's good at some things, it's not good at many other things. So, you need to analyze what are those areas that it's good, and does my use case really need AI? There are probably use cases where you don't need AI and you are like just slapping AI as a tool just to meet that strategy. And that's also, in my hypothesis, one of the key drivers for why things fail towards the deployment stage is because the cost AI is not cheap. Like costs are humongous and the ROI doesn't come through because you have used AI, you have slapped it onto a surface that probably doesn't need it, and you're not going to see the significant value that it provides. And so that's, in my hypothesis, one of the key driver as to why many projects don't take off. So I encourage my students as well as folks I meet is you should know when to use AI and when not to use AI. And when you see that AI shouldn't be applied in that role, then you should have that courage to push back and say, this one, here are the reasons why AI is not right for this. But here is this other thing that I've identified, which we have not been able to tackle so far. But with AI, we are now able to unlock that value and take it into market. So it is about identifying and also prioritizing it up.
Wonderful. What does it mean when you say you have to do this analysis and figure out because you just can't run it? and see if it compiles. You have to make sure that I'm going to one second. I think this is not
Sorry, I'm taking you a lot of off script because I generally just go natural. Yeah.
it's perfect. It's perfect. I was trying to ask this question and I felt like it is totally flowing out of context. So I should not
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I was like into it, like
Yeah.
so good. Yeah, I'll switch. I'd like to go into where what's the gap between what leadership talk about agentic AI delivery and what's actually happening on the ground when people are executing it? What are the challenges they are seeing?
I think leadership and on the ground there is quite a bit of gap where the leadership still thinks of AI as some deterministic system. Can we like in terms of like when can we launch it? Which is of course it's a very relevant question, but also thinking of it as a deterministic system where they think that it's a box that you tell it what to do and it can do it. I think there's a huge difference in what the reality is and what the leadership sometimes thinks. So it's always about how do you keep them honest about what can be achieved. And sometimes folks think it's AI is just once and done, whereas they don't factor into the costs of maintenance. Your models drift pretty quickly if you don't retrain them, and nobody actually comes and thinks about retraining as part of their launch price or launch estimates. And so these are like a few things that there are gaps about in terms of expectations, the time it takes to get something up and ready, and sometimes this iterative loop of having to try and perfect an agent takes a little bit of time than what a traditional SDE could be able to give you and say, well, I'll be able to get this piece of code in like 3 weeks. But now with agents, you do not know how the agent is going to behave. You have to take time to experiment and iterate, which I think many of them miss understanding. So I think there is a lot of scope for even leadership to get retrained around their expectations. And one thing folks ask me is, okay, how should leadership get trained? And I think there is no better way than giving them hands on. Like if leadership is asking questions that, in your opinion, are like things that could be a knowledge gap, I always suggest like just talk to your leadership and say, hey, I would love to have like a hands on running session. And actually, they'll be very interested to take it on because they want it and they don't have the time to go and learn many of these things that you are leading. And so if you organize like a hands-on workshop for leadership, they'll actually be super pumped up and they'll probably be some of your best students who will learn how to do it. And so that's the way I usually have people unlock. A, gives them visibility as someone who knows that domain, and two, it helps you bridge the gap, because otherwise you'll keep running in these meetings again and again about tell me when to expect, tell me when to give, tell me when to deliver kind of a thing. And so you just break out of that loop quickly by you bringing them up to the same standard of expectation of on what that system is.
Yeah, you mentioned there a point about bringing leadership along for the ride by giving them opportunity to experiment together. I'm curious, how do you shield the team in some of the noise which may be generated because of early involvement of leadership in testing that prototype? Because I can totally see when leadership are super excited, they are also ready with lot of feedback to give to the product.
Yeah, I don't think you can completely shield, but what you could do is first, like I said, if you level set expectation with them and say, here are milestones that we want to craft, and say milestone one is getting customer feedback on our MVP. Everything else you could point it back to that milestone and say, we are working on this milestone, we are building towards this milestone, and once we have feedback, we'll bring it to you. And so when you have feedback from customers, you can bring it to your leadership and then set an expectation on what you're going to do to refine and what are the changes you're going to do and when that second iteration is going to be. So I always set that expectation on these small bite iterative cycles. So it looks near term, like my CEO always hears in the next 2 weeks, in the next 3 weeks. And so there's always some progress that happens. And they also feel like the 2 weeks, 3 weeks timeline feels to them like good update time frame. And so it's that balance between setting expectations with them and two, having clear, small, modular milestones, not like those big milestones that we used to have before, but small, modular other mini milestones that you can continue to move forward. So your team is not hampered as much. It is still going in direction, yet your leadership could be brought in.
Wonderful. And I'm curious, like the projects I work on, I want those to productionalize or go to customer hand right away. I'm curious, when you are seeing in the field, when you are working with these agents, what are the things which are making it real differentiator, where more customers are adopting to those agents or more customers are having that sticky effect to the agent where they want to come back?
Yeah, I think it boils down to not just building agents, because building agents is actually really easy now. Like, it's very easy. You could knock it off in an afternoon and build an agent. But deploying it into production is an altogether different game, where you have to think about what are the guardrails your agent has. Two, is it having enough enterprise readiness that involves like your authentication, role based access controls in terms of even login and sessions, and does it have enough traffic management, does it have security in place? When something goes wrong, does it fall back gracefully? Are there enough monitoring setup for you to know when your agent is not in line before a customer posts it on, say, X or on LinkedIn, instead of you finding out from forums? Do you have mechanisms set up for you to know? So a lot of that is part of the enterprise hardening, and it is here that it is the traditional pipelines hooking this up with your CI/CD, and so it's here that hardening the agent is what is difficult today. And the tools out there are several tools, but each of them are like different tools. You have to stitch them together. So that's the hard part today. It's not the building is very easy right now.
Wonderful. For a PM who is trying to move their organization to agentic AI, what's the thing they should do first to advocate for using more AI if they are not using AI already?
If they're not using AI at all, so there are two paths to this, right? So one is your leadership comfortable with the team using AI to make your own PDLC cycle go quicker? So that is the team using AI to make the iterations and the velocity faster. That's one aspect of building with AI. Then comes, as you start using that AI often, you'll start seeing other areas that you can unlock to go build AI products, where you could launch maybe an AI agent for, say, support tickets, or maybe for internal, like maybe documentation team wants to keep their documentation up to date. How can you like use an agent to kind of connect from code to documentation? So you'll identify those opportunities. Again, keep those opportunities problem specific. Like, start from the problem, then try to see, does it need an agent? So I'll always say, users before algorithms. So look for users pain point before thinking of what all algorithm. So, and once you start identifying these use cases, which may not be high costs and could be medium ROIs, try to do one or two pilots and really prove it out. I think the success of AI or agentic AI in your org is based on how well you prove out that one prototype that you take. And if you take a good problem that is worthy of implementing with AI and you make it successful, then the trust of using AI becomes higher in your leadership, that now they would explore to use AI for some other use cases as well. And if you are a person who wants that kind of leadership role, then now is the best time to actually build, mock up different use cases, build agents yourself, and be at the forefront of showing how change could happen.
Great. And if I have to create some small projects on my own, trying to experiment what that looks like and how to build end to end, I'm curious, do you have some suggestions for the audience what kind of pet projects they can work on?
Yeah, I actually teach AI and agentic AI for product managers as well as for business leaders. And my course is fully designed around hands on project building, where folks make more than 6 projects within 5 weeks. And posts that I've seen students say how they're so much more comfortable building out their ideas and just having that initial jump start into how do you go into that ecosystem. And so my product is Next Gen Product Manager. So if anyone's interested, you could also sign up for the cohort, and that gets you a good jump start into how do you go about building projects.
Wonderful. I am looking forward to that. Last question. After 13 years building AI products in some of the most demanding companies like Netflix, Amazon, what's something you believed with agentic AI execution that you have since revised?
Yeah, previously, we all used to think that AI is to reduce human involvement. How do we remove humans out and just automate? But as and how I've built AI and agentic AI workflows, actually putting humans in the loop is a great architecture and a design pattern. And it actually builds something that we spoke earlier about trust in terms of keeping humans in the loop builds that trust. And so the way I think about agentic AI now is it's not about replacing humans. It is about how do you allow humans to go and focus on things that are more complex and cognitively heavy and need domain understanding and taste, and where can a lot of other mundane, menial, or even simple tasks could be automated while still keeping them in the loop. So I think this human in the loop design is actually a very powerful design pattern in agentic AI workflows.
That's the kind of answer I started this podcast for. Jyothi, thank you. Thank you for the great conversation, for giving our users unpolished answer and motivating them to go build something with agentic AI. I am so excited what our users will get out of this.
I'm so glad that you invited me, and I'm hoping your users and your listeners will tune in, and I'm excited to be on the show.
Thank you, Jyoti. Three things I am taking from this conversation. One, it's never launch and done. It's always iteration. Two, human in the loop isn't compromise. It's the design pattern that builds trust. Three, you don't need a Ferrari to buy groceries. You know when AI is not the answer. If this landed, share it with one PM or engineer or anyone who is stuck between prototype and production right now. If you want to learn hands-on prototyping with Claude and build that feedback muscle, find Jyothi at Next Gen Product Manager. This is Agentic AI Execution. Until next time, stay curious, keep building, and bring someone along for the ride.